Mark, I hope you got that.
Gave you a thumbs up.
Yeah, we got the thumbs up.
Everybody, we're about to get started. If you wouldn't mind, take your seats and put your cell phones on the vibrate or off. The Board of Adjustment, January 22nd, is coming to order. We're going to do the roll call.
Chairman Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Bouris.
Here.
Mr. Eisner.
Here.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
Mr. Bolton.
Here.
Okay, and if I can get agreement from the board, we'll move item number 2 to the end of the meeting. You guys,
No objection.
you good?
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that. And then we will hear some words from our legal counsel.
This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Board of Adjustment acts in a quasi-judicial rather than a legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, but rather to apply law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the Code of Ordinances in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may only consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the Commission is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the Code of Ordinance, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. Are there any members of the board this evening wishing to disclose any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest?
None.
Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak this evening, if you could please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in.
Oh, my.
You all swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So sworn.
So now we move to item number 4, application number 17-129, extension of a variance to reduce the required front yard and rear yard setbacks. We have a staff presentation from the city.
Yes, Louis Serna presenting staff comments. This is for a 6-month extension to a variance to reduce the front and rear yard setbacks in order to accommodate a single-family residence. The variance was originally approved on January 24th, 2018. The variance authorized a reduction in the front yard setback from 25 feet to 14 feet, and the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 15 feet for the construction of a single-family residence on the parcel that had contained a single-family residence that also did not conform to the minimum front and rear yard setbacks. The applicant has not secured the necessary permits to construct the residence, and the variance is set to expire on January 24th, 2020. The applicant is seeking a one-time 6-month extension of the variance to move forward with plans for the property. The applicant's request for extension was received on November 20th, 2019. If granted, the new expiration date for the variance would be July 24th, 2020. Staff recommends that the Board of Adjustment approve this request for a one-time 6-month extension for variance case number 17-129.
Okay, we can move to hear from the applicant. Would you like to say something?
David Graham, owner of 38 Kramer. Current address is 8142 Aquila, Port Richey. I'm really here to address any questions that the board might have. We have a contractor under contract, and we should have permits to the city. He's telling me by the middle of February.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I have one.
Yes.
Have plans been delivered to the building department?
Not yet. That's why we're asking for the extension. I have a letter from the contractor and just a elevation view of the property for the board, if they'd like to look at it. He's telling us that by mid-February, he should have drawings to the city. When we first got this, they said, you have 2 years, and I thought, I'll be swimming in the pool a year from now. After having 2 architects and probably spending $10,000, we found a model that we liked and proceeded with this builder just to go forward. So it's unfortunate delay. My apologies to the board to have to come here and ask for this variance, but
Any more?
I have a question of staff.
Please.
Is 6 months realistic if part of the application states that they'll have drawings into the building department by December? Now it's February, so that's a quarter of the time or a third of the time. Is 6 months really enough time?
Well, 6 months is what the code allows.
Okay.
So anything beyond that would require a new application.
Thank you. That's a clarification. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak either in favor or against this application? Please, approach the podium. Please state your name and address. You have 4 minutes.
Okay, my name is Bob McCoy.
I think you're getting a signal over here. Apparently, they are telling you that you were going to be speaking on a different item tonight.
Oh, I'm too early.
That's okay. It's quite all right. Happens to a bunch of us, so it's okay.
We all need friends like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we all had friends like that.
Right.
You know?
No, there's a lot of times they'll get through half the thing and then, okay. All right. So I guess we're going to close the public portion and go to board discussion. What do you got?
I have nothing.
Looking at you, Mr. Eisner. What do you got?
I'd go for a motion.
I was going to say, and keep in mind, guys, that this is not a quasi-judicial application. This is an administrative application for the board.
Right. And there were no, just one quick item, there were no objections by mail, correct, for this?
We did get an email dated January 21st, 2020.
That's
And
correct.
speaking out against this, I believe it's part of your packets.
Yes, I do see that. I recall being handed this. Okay, so the issue with this, and I'm speaking to our attorney, is this is talking about giving them the setback, but we can't even address this letter because it's already been
Right.
agreed
This
upon.
board has already approved the variance based on the criteria. This is just the administrative extension for the
Yeah,
variance.
yeah, so that's a little too late. All right, so we'll go for a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
Approve.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Bouris?
Yes.
Mr. Hrbovsky?
Yes.
Mr. Bouris, good night.
Okay, sir. Good
Doesn't
luck.
matter.
So our next item is number 5, application number 19175, variance to reduce the required rear yard setback, location 1147 Tukes Road. And we go to staff presentation.
Yes, this is an application for a variance to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 20 feet to 7.5 feet for the construction of a two-family dwelling on a vacant parcel. This is located at the northwest corner of Tukes Road and Lagoon Road. It is zoned 1 and 2 family residential district, R70, with the future land use of RU, residential urban. The subject parcel had at one time contained a single-family dwelling, which has been demolished. The parcel does comply with the dimensional standards of the R70 district in which it is located. We've reviewed this for compliance with the criteria for granting variances of section 2015.02B and I'll have to go over our findings briefly. The first criteria is the need for the requested variance arises out of the physical surroundings, shape, topographical conditions, or other physical or environmental conditions that are unique to the specific property involved and which do not apply generally to property located in the same zoning district. As we've noted, the subject parcel does comply with the dimensional standards of the R70 zoning district in which it is located. It is a corner lot, however, there are no other physical or environmental conditions that are unique to the property. The second criteria is that the condition or special circumstances peculiar to the property have not been self-created or have not resulted from an action by the applicant or with prior knowledge or approval of the applicant. Our finding is, as we've noted, there are no conditions or special circumstances that are peculiar to the property. The requested variance is a result of the applicant's desire to build a two-family dwelling of a specific design on the subject property. Third criteria is that literal enforcement of the requirements of the Comprehensive Land Development Code would have the effect of denying the applicant reasonable use of the property or legally conforming buildings or other structures, and the requested variance is a minimum variance that would make possible reasonable use of the property. Our finding is that literal enforcement of the minimum rear yard setback standards would not deny the applicant reasonable use of the property. The requested variance is not the minimum necessary to make reasonable use of the property. The application packet doesn't contain a proposed layout of the site, and in the opinion of staff, there are other building configurations that would allow reasonable use of the property as either a single-family residence or a duplex or a two-family dwelling unit, which are both allowed in that zoning district and which would comply with the yard setback standards of the zoning district. The third criteria is a granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege that is not allowed for other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. Our finding is that the granting of the variance would allow encroachment into the rear yard setback on a lot that meets the minimum dimensional standards of the R70 zoning district. This sort of encroachment is not commonly enjoyed by other properties in the area. And finally, the granting of the variance will not substantially diminish property values in the surrounding area. Our finding is a granting of the variance for the rear yard encroachment would not be expected to significantly affect property values in the surrounding area, nor substantially affect adjacent properties. However, given that the other four criteria are not met, as we've described in our findings, staff is recommending denial of this variance.
Any questions of the staff at this time?
I just have one question. The continuous lots, 4302, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07, 08, and this one's 4309. When I drove by, I couldn't, unless I violated people's private property trespass, I couldn't see whether any of those properties had received variances for structures. And from what I just heard you read, is that correct? They're all built within the minimum setbacks?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not sure if there have been other variants granted, but those lots generally comply with the R70 zoning district standards, so I would not expect there to be any variances.
Okay, thank you.
And
Also,
just
you
as
might want to enlighten him
I was
about.
going to say, yes, also as a point of clarification, whether or not any other homes in the neighborhood have variances are irrelevant. It's
Thank
whether
you.
or not the evidence here today
don't let
fits the
us-
criteria.
Consider that.
And a point of clarification, Tukes Road is considered the front for this property, so Lagoon is the side, correct?
Yes, based on the previous structure, the single-family dwelling that was there, Tukes Road was the front. However, you could change the other road to the front depending on where you put the main entrance.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
I have a question.
Please.
Why do we have unofficial copies? And we don't have official copies? Why is that discrepancy then?
Are you asking the city staff?
The city staff, yes. In other words, this is official copy?
I'm sorry. can I
Yes.
borrow this? They're just looking at
Oh, okay.
the unplatted.
Oh,
boundary
unofficial
survey.
copy?
Is this something that was provided by the applicant?
Yeah, that was provided by the applicant. Not sure, not sure what that actually means. I'm not familiar with seeing that on plans or surveys, but it is an acceptable survey for our purposes, but that was supplied by the applicant.
Okay, here we go.
I have one more question. Why the affidavit to the board is not signed?
Oh, the applicant's ownership affidavit?
Well, the owner seems to be someone else who we have no name, and the applicant is somebody else. So there's two different entities here.
Yeah, perhaps the applicant can answer that. I'm not certain why that form was not signed or whether or not that was ever corrected.
So at this time, we'll hear from the applicant. Come up to the podiums, please state your name and address, and then you can give a presentation, and then we'll have questions from them.
Okay, it's Angelina Rosa, 1436 Watermill Circle, Tarpon Springs.
Okay.
I'm not exactly understanding what you're asking.
What I'm asking is the affidavit for the board is not signed.
I was told I didn't have to sign that when I submitted everything. And plus, it's protected property for the, what do you call it, the tax collector has everything private due to abuse and stuff, so there's no name on the thing, but I had nothing to do with that. They told me I didn't need to sign that paper, that second part.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Are you the property owner?
Yes, it's in
Okay,
a
so
trust.
that's why there's no affidavit. The affidavit is usually filled out if the property owner is asserting that they own the property and they give an agent the ability to represent them in front of the board.
Thank you.
Since she is representing herself, and we verified that she's testified that she is the property owner, she didn't need to sign an affidavit.
Okay.
Anything else? Mr. Bouris.
The property owner, the name is redacted, and the
Yes.
applicant,
Yes, for privacy issues.
Owner?
Pardon me?
are you the property owner?
Yes, but again, it's for privacy issues due to a domestic violence, so.
But your name is on the applicant side.
I was told that because I'm representing the property. The property is in a trust,
Are you a trustee of the trust?
yes.
Okay,
Is that what?
that's fine. That's
Yes, it's
Yeah,
official.
She's under oath and she's testifying, so.
Anything else, Mr. Bouris?
No, sir.
Sir?
Done.
On this side.
Why do we have an unofficial copy?
Official copy of what?
Unofficial copy
Unofficial.
of the schematic of what's to be built there.
They did submit you that. He's finishing it up because he's waiting for me to get the rest of the approval for the variance in the back.
What I'm
Originally, there used to be apparently from years prior, there used to be a septic tank there, and I'm only thinking there was a 20-foot setback was because of a septic tank that was put in before my time. So there's no need for me to even have that type of setback, number one, because I am able to get sewage on the property per utilities here.
My question is, we have a schematic here that shows what you're planning on
Right.
building, and it says unofficial.
Unofficial because he didn't finish completing it. He's ready to, we were told that would be okay because he was submitting, he's going to polish it off once everything is done.
Well,
Because he didn't want to continue on with the plans unless you guys are going to give me my variance that I need.
I understand that, but you're asking us to even consider something that may not materialize.
Well, I don't understand. It is going to materialize because that's my thing is I'm going to start construction and get my building permits once he's all
Let
done.
me explain it a different way. We have many times people come before our board, and they present something to us, and what we're looking at is what we will agree to sometimes give a variance for, and hold them to what they're showing.
Well, that's going to be set in stone once I get my
Let me
variance.
finish
I
my
understand
point.
that.
Let me finish my point. You're handing us something that says unofficial.
I was told that was okay.
I
I'm only
understand
submitting
what-
what I was told. I asked what y'all needed, I submitted what you requested, and that's what I was told.
So, Mr. Eisner,
So it's
clarify
going to
with
be
the
set
city
in
and the
stone,
attorney if this is
basically,
in fact-
once this is
So,
approved.
yes, we're going to ask the city and the attorney, is this in fact okay unofficially receiving an unofficial copy?
Well, for your purposes, of course, you can consider this, and if you do choose to grant the variance, you can put conditions on the variance, and one of those conditions, as you've done in the past, can be that condition it on based on the boundary survey that was presented at the hearing. As long as that is true and accurate on the final official copy, then the variance can be granted based on that,
Okay.
should you choose to approve the variance.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I can submit all that paperwork in once all this is approved. He's got it ready to go. He just wants to make sure that we're getting it, so he doesn't have to make any changes. So it's cost-affecting to me.
Mr. Bouris?
Yes. Why will he make any changes if the variance is approved?
If it's approved, then it's going to say, I'm not going to make changes. Again, if you don't approve it, if you're not giving me my 7.5 feet, then he'll have, and say, you want to give me 10 feet, then he'll have to make changes.
But-
This layout is based on the 7.5 feet.
Okay, this survey that you have on page 1,
My God.
I'm sorry?
You're telling me the same thing. I don't know what you want me to do.
You have a survey on page 1.
Yes,
Okay, this survey. It's an official survey.
that's
isn't
an official survey, yes.
it? Why is it unofficial, marked as unofficial?
I don't know. I don't know. I have 4, I was given 5.
Okay.
If it was made a copy or whatever, I don't know. I gave an official one.
Okay, thank you.
If you need me to bring in extra copies, fine, but I like to get my plans in motion so I could start my construction and get my building permits. I can't have them polish off my plans until you guys approve me or not approve me.
Okay. Mr. Eisner?
We need to, when we apply a variance to a certain lot, we need to have you come before this board and give us reasons that will change what staff just read out. 4 out of the 5 criteria. Let me finish my point, because I see you're ready to jump down my throat.
Sorry.
We have already heard that 4 out of the 5 you have not met.
I submitted everything in that I was told to submit in. I don't understand. I was told I met the criteria when I was submitting the paperwork in through zoning and planning.
Let me hear from staff then. Is that what was said to her?
Staff never commits to a recommendation before the analysis is complete. I think we try to advise and dissuade people from presenting variances if it does not look likely. But yeah, we never commit to saying that it will be approved one way or the other.
All right, so let me go back to what I was saying earlier. How could you convince this board that the 4 out of the 5 that have not been met, could you convince us that a variance is necessary or should be granted?
Because the lot is very narrow. You only have 31 feet from front to back with the easement, a 25-foot in the front, and you got a 20-foot in the back, which makes no sense at all. That's kind of ludicrous, really, to have something like that much. The only reason I think that that setback was like that was because there was a septic tank. There's no septic tank, so I don't need a septic tank. And you still got enough for utilities. Utilities, usually an easement like that is for utilities. There's a corner right there on the corner near the park, there's a utility pole. There's another, at the other end of the lot, kitty corner, is another utility pole. Usually setbacks like that are for easements for utilities and stuff like that.
Can I read something to you? Okay. I don't want to go through all 5 because it was read by staff, but number 3, let's deal with just that one.
Okay.
It says literal enforcement of the requirements of City of Tarpon Springs Comprehensive Land Development Code would have the effect of denying the applicant, you, of reasonable use of the property. So you could build a smaller property, correct, and not have to, I'm just asking a question. You could build a smaller property and not, you would still have reasonable use of that land, correct?
Again, the way the layout was.
Asking the question that, this is our criteria. And what it's saying is that you could build a one-family house, you could build a smaller house and not have the setbacks. Are you saying that there is something that you could explain to us that you can't do that for a certain reason?
I can't because of the way the narrowness is and the layout I have on my plans, number one. And really, that setback is going to be covered only by 2 inches, and there's an extended porch. The rest of it's not going to really make any difference on it.
See, let me try it this way, and I'll just give up after that. If your property, people will come before the board for a variance because their property is so odd-shaped that they cannot build anything reasonable there. What this is stating is you can build something reasonable, but you're choosing to build something that's a 2-family house. Let me finish my point. And you're not meeting that particular criteria. So for us to ignore that criteria, we couldn't give you a variance, or at least I couldn't give you a variance just on that point alone. So my point, I'll go back to again one more time, is you could legally build something there that meets that setback, correct?
It would make it a smaller home. We've already
That's exactly what I'm-
downsized it as small as I can go and stuff.
Well,
And the
it is-
reason why is because I'm downsizing due to my health conditions, so the reason I'm having a duplex so I can have extra income coming in. That is my,
So are you saying it's because of your health condition and it's a financial?
right.
Well, I will explain to you that we're not allowed to consider finances as a board. So,
I don't see why there's a problem with it.
okay, I understand.
We're simply following the laws that were presented in front
Well,
of us.
then why did I waste my time even spending $250 to come in here and say that I met the criterias? If I didn't meet the criterias, then I should have been told that at planning and zoning. I was told I was within the criterias of meeting that. I don't see what the problem is.
Do you have a question, Mr. Bolt?
I have a question. I'm not sure, being new to the board, all of the rules.
Go for it.
How long has this property been owned? How long have you owned this
I've only
property?
purchased it in June.
So that's my point then.
Right, and I
is-
bought it off of a bank. It's been demolished, the building by the bank when I bought it. back in
It's really
2000.
unfortunate, but when you purchase a property, it really is the due diligence of the buyer to make sure that the property
I
is
did that, and I
owning-
questioned it even before I bought it. I
Sorry,
questioned it
I could not
afterwards.
support the applicant.
So what is it that you all need from me to get, to supply that?
You want to explain it, Mr. Eisner?
I think I tried.
I don't
Stay
do,
within
I'm
the
happy-
boundaries.
I
of
don't
the-
do hypotheticals.
I was going to
don't
say,
think
I'm
it's
happy
healthy
to
for
make
anybody.
clarification if you'd like.
Sure.
So I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that when you went to the Planning and Zoning Department, they said you need to supply us with these types of documents, and you did that, correct?
They gave me yes, whatever
Okay.
I supplied is what I was it.
Okay, correct. Now, when going for a variance, there are 7 criteria that this board needs to consider, and you have to meet every single one of them in order to get a variance.
I wasn't given that information then.
Well, were you provided the staff report?
The what now?
The staff report? We have an extra copy. Louis, do you know if she was provided the staff report?
I'm not sure if, okay, yes,
Yes, she was, okay, so
that
you,
was applied to them.
okay, so there are criteria listed in the staff report, and staff ultimately recommended denial because they said you didn't meet the criteria. Your job here now is to provide additional evidence to this board that conflicts with that says, no, I otherwise do meet these criteria. If you meet them, then the board by law has to grant your variance. If you don't meet them, then the board by law has to deny your variance. So your position here today is to, as Mr. Eisner said, convince them how you meet those criteria. And if I have an extra copy of the staff report, if you'd like
I have it
to
right here for you.
take a look at it.
Don't mind.
Oh, okay. So here are the criteria that you were evaluated on.
This is the first page of it.
Okay. It shows our address. And you have the burden to prove that you meet the criteria.
Well, can we table it then until I get the information that you need? Because I was told I provided everything when I submitted everything.
So we have done this in the past. What are our options?
It's at the election of the applicant. If the applicant chooses to continue the application until the next meeting, she can certainly do so. When you do continue the application, we need to make sure that the same complement of members of the board are available. If not, whoever appears on the next board needs to watch the video so that they understand all the evidence that has been submitted and then can participate and vote on that application at the next meeting. But it is at the election of the applicant.
Do we know if we have a meeting scheduled for next month?
We do.
Yeah, we do.
I apologize, you wanted to do
applications.
your introduction, I just remembered that. We'll get to that.
Maybe
We'll
this is
get
a
to-
question for staff and/or council. In fairness to the applicant, because to provide her with adequate time to gather the necessary documentation and supporting evidence for this, could we possibly give her the opportunity to present it maybe in the next, we're in January now, maybe the March meeting?
Well,
Again,
I've
at
been
her
waiting on doing
discretion.
this here for a while because it took me a while to find somebody
I'm
to
just
actually set
presenting an
the
option.
plans, yeah.
I'm presenting an option to see if maybe that would be of assistance to you, if it is so, appropriate for us via the law.
All what I'm doing is going to improve the property. I don't understand why you guys are giving me a hassle with this.
So would you like to continue this to
Yes.
the next meeting?
Yes, when is that going to be?
Well, that's what I'm double checking. We have date certain,
February 26th.
February 26th.
Unbelievable.
And I have a question for our city attorney.
Yep.
I believe there are people here to speak about this property?
There are.
Should we just continue this, or and let them speak now and then again, or do we just
It's at the
move
election
it?
of the applicant. If they want to speak, they need to speak on the entirety of the evidence that's
Okay.
been presented.
Understood.
So without having to rehash that.
Right.
It'd be better if they.
Okay, so you are saying that that's what you would like to do? You want to put it off till next month?
I guess so, until I get what you want, apparently, and stuff, because gave everything that I was supposed to give when I submitted the paperwork.
Okay, so
They wanted the copy of what the architect did as a preliminary, and they said that was fine, it was acceptable. That's the reason why I didn't finish a complete plan. I'm not gonna sit and waste money and pay this gentleman money for something that may need to be adjusted because you won't allow me to have it. That doesn't make any sense.
Can I ask you a question?
please, oh, sir, Mr. Bouris.
Yes, do you understand what we're talking about? What you have to do in order to be able to comply?
Well, I got the list here now, so I'll just go through it with somebody and get you what you need.
Okay. Is that 1 month, is that enough time?
I assume so. If I have a problem with it, can I change it and call in or something?
That's a good question.
With,
If she can't do it by next month,
Which is why I was asking if we wanted to give her the option to do it at the
I mean,
March meeting.
she can contact planning and zoning.
Okay.
But I will advise this board, as I've always advised this board, applicants do not have the ability to indefinitely continue their applications. I know in the past, this board has done it for 1 or 2 meetings, but, and this is for the benefit of the applicant too, you cannot continue it indefinitely.
Okay.
You either need to withdraw your application if you continue to move it month to month, and resubmit it at a later date, or just let the board decide on the evidence that you've presented.
Okay. And you're saying you got people objecting to this?
Reread number 2.
I mean, I believe that there
Yeah, these are
here to
people
speak
in the
out.
neighborhood that pretty much has been harassing me. They called coding, zoning up and everything.
Or if you're seeking to continue your application, then we don't need any more evidence
Okay.
this evening.
That's fine.
Can I ask you a question? Can I speak to you, please? I need you to really look and read this
Okay.
criteria.
I'll have my attorney read it.
I
so.
understand that, but I just would like to go through one thing for you. I've tried number 3, I'm going to try number 2.
Okay.
And I want you to understand, this is not an easy task for you or your attorney to do. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you. It says the conditions or special circumstances peculiar to the property have not been self-created. They are self-created. That is let me finish.
I'm understanding, listening.
I am trying to help you. They have been self-created, okay? It says, or have resulted from an action by the applicant, which is you, or with prior knowledge or approval of the applicant, which again is you. So it's saying if none of these things happened, then we can look at that criteria. Well, the analysis is, as noted above, there are no conditions or special circumstances that are peculiar to this property. So you're gonna have to come up with something that, I don't know what it is, that you're gonna be able to prove to us that this property has something peculiar to us, to you, that is forcing you to make a two-story or a two-family
I'm
house.
not making a two-story,
A two-family house.
which
okay?
there's stuff in the area that has that. They have rentals in that area.
We
They
can
have,
consider that,
We're talking about your property.
please.
We're talking about your
You
property.
could see already, yeah. It's okay,
Try to
that's fine. I'll
answer
have my
just me.
attorney handle that,
I'm
though.
just trying to help you.
That's fine, I understand.
So what you'd have to do is bring us some sort of factual proof that you cannot do anything to this property, that because of this property, you have to build a two-story, a two-family house.
Well, it says I asked before I even bought it, way back a year prior to it, because I was watching the property for a year, and where everybody had opportunity when it was on the property, when it was for sale, when the house was there, and nobody put any bids on it, in my understanding of it. So anyway, the bottom line is, when I called and I checked on it, and I called the city up, and it said,
Have the variance of a setback according to what you're requesting, because we don't apply a variance of that magnitude just because you can't fit it. You have to
so what
know-
would be the max of a variance for you, for instance?
You would have to
So-
meet all the setbacks.
You would have to meet all of the
And
setbacks.
build within that footprint.
And then you wouldn't need a variance.
Then you wouldn't need it at all.
Otherwise, you need to be able to demonstrate that the request that you're making is the minimum request
Okay.
that's
All
needed
right.
in order to build the property.
I'll have my attorney and my architect look at this, and I'll have the surveyor take a look at it as well,
Okay,
and we'll go from there then.
thank you. See you next month.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't need to rule on this. do we?
No, because it was at the election of the applicant. You'll have to discuss that with the planning and zoning department. Yeah, because it was at the election of the applicant, it does not need to be voted on by this board.
Right, thank you. Actually, you'll have to wait till next month now, because we just closed that item, so.
That's not this
That's,
committee.
and that's also not part of this
Yeah,
variance.
that's not,
Something I've been working on for 20 years with you.
Not with us.
I live at 1168 Queens Road, and I was promised back then that within 3 years we would get it. The federal government donated $640,000 to
Uh-huh.
the city to put it in, and it was used in a different place instead of ours. Then I was so happy when they built this lift station for the county to throw there. And when the engineers were there, I said, that's big enough to handle all of Toots Road. And he said, sure is. So I came into the city and I said, why can't we hook onto that lift station? And I was told by the wonderful mayor that you had that we cannot take city sewer and put it into the county system.
sir, what mayor did you speak to?
There was a lady mayor, she was very nice, I don't know who she was.
Was this Beverly Billers, or was this?
Protos.
Anita Protos. So this is not for tonight's discussion. I would recommend that you get with the city staff. There's one sitting right over here, and or you can contact the mayor that we have right now, which is Chris Alahousas, or you can talk to the city manager, Mark Licoris, and just tell him about your concerns. And I get it, that's,
I've been to meetings,
okay.
This is not the forum to do this.
Unfortunately, we can't do anything at all about it. I wish I could do something about it, but we cannot. Honestly, none of us up here can even rule on that. What's that? That's not what we're looking at. We're looking at if there's a variance granted.
No.
I do not know.
My understanding from the applicant, and you heard the testimony here today, she has not submitted her building plans to the permitting department in order to receive a building permit. She's seeking to get the variance first so she can finalize her plans.
We are the first of many steps.
And this board cannot consider the sewage hookup or anything like that. That's done later
Unfortunately,
on
we can't
down
do
the
anything
line.
about it. But please go to the Board of Commissioners meeting and let them have it.
We have zero to do with sewer.
Well, you got to continue. Squeaky wheel.
Have a good evening.
Why not?
Why not?
What do you got? We have another applicant we got to get to, please.
Process issue. Can I have one of his things? Can you put it in my hand, because I don't want to contaminate on the phone?
No idea.
Again, I have no idea.
We don't do anything with sewer.
I really wish I knew the answer, but I don't. I'd contact the city. I would contact the city manager, Mark LaCouris, and just ask him. He can find out if he does not know. But we don't know.
If she's allowed to, the rest of us can hook up, right?
We don't do anything
We don't know
with
that
sewer.
either.
It's very frustrating to see people sitting up here. It looks like we're official and should know everything, and I understand
why
that.
we're asking for
This
official.
board only handles whether or not somebody can do something different than what is their zone to do.
That's correct.
all we handle. We don't have any other parts of the city.
Hey, man, I'm on
So
septic
sorry
too,
that-
baby.
that we
And
just
sir,
don't-
we're a volunteer board. We're just citizens like y'all.
We're
We are not city
volunteers.
employees.
We got to
As
move
long as it
on.
doesn't
We
have
got
to
to
do
move
with
on. So what do
sewer.
you got? Hurry up. What do you got?
Yes.
Yes.
This one meets the criteria.
Unless you
Depends
get a
on the-
variance.
It depends on.
Unless you get a variance.
A smaller one.
It depends on the district that you live in, and that is actually evidence that will be presented at the next hearing.
Right.
And
So be here
and
next
this
month and we
board-
can-
This board is not to discuss it,
We
especially
can
since
hash
the
it out
applicant
then.
has left.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, have a good night, everyone. So before we get to the next application, I do believe the city was going to make an introduction, and I blew right past it. So sorry about that. Here we go.
God bless you.
That's okay. Okay, Pat McNeese, Principal Planner, Acting Director. I just wanted to introduce our city planner, John Bertrand, has been here for 6 months. And John is a great addition to our staff, and you'll be seeing more of him in the future.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, and I look forward to working with you. On that note, I'm John Bertrand, the city planner, and I will be presenting staff comments for application 19-177.
Nice segue.
177, this is at 650 East Tarpon Avenue.
Okay.
It's zoned residential office. A residential unit or dwelling unit is an allowed use by right in the RO zone. The applicants have 2 existing buildings dating back to 1925, predates current code, so they're legally non-conforming, that were built in 1925, 10 feet or less from the east property line, and they're requesting a variance to allow a approximately 20 by 30 foot structure to bridge the 2 existing structures to create a new multifamily dwelling unit.
Okay. Any questions of the staff at this point on this application? What do you got?
Not a thing.
Jackie, you sure?
I actually had lunch, a late lunch at Don Taco, so I'm considering that unofficial research. Delicious research at
Same
that.
thing. Oh my God.
So,
There are 2 of you that have done some
you're at
research
Don
on
Taco
this.
today?
I
Yum.
wanted to go by and just look and see
Okay.
what it was.
I just wanted tacos, so, I mean,
I just sold the place
$1
next
ones or
door.
the
so-
$3 ones?
oh, I went big time. you
Okay,
know.
so we're going to hear from the applicant then, please.
Just don't beat us up.
And we don't know anything about sewer for the record?
I was just gonna ask that question.
Oh, dude.
My name is Vasily Kontos. I live at 1408 Kimberly Lane, Tarpon Springs. Okay, and
my name is George Cantos. I live in 207 North Florida Avenue in Tarpon Springs. And I just want to say something about the property on it. It is residential use right now, but it used to be 8 units before. And the doctor bought it and make it to residential. So I was asking when I bought the building, to go for 8 units, but they told me then you can't go 8 units. And we were upstairs on it, they told me I can go 6 units. And that's what I'm trying to do, get a nice, beautiful building there. So, get a nice tenancy. Not extending to the east side, anything on it, I'm just continue straight where the other building is, marching to the other building.
And it did seem, in looking at the pictures, and like, I think it was particularly the aerial, they do, the front and the back building that you're looking to kind of connect.
Yeah.
They align, they're on the same plane on that east side.
On the
Does
east
one-
side, it's gonna be straight attached to
One
the
straight
other
big wall.
building. Yeah, and then it comes out with the existing building. We're not going from one end to the other.
But the east side is like one straight wall all along.
It's go-
Would
yeah,
be.
It's gonna be straight, yes.
Okay.
From the building in front where you're sitting at today, it's gonna go straight to the back building.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
The one building sits further east than the other.
Correct.
So are you, the southern building sits closer to the east, further to the east?
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
But you're coming off of the building closest to Tarpon Avenue.
The north side
And using that as, so it's not a parallel wall. One unit is still gonna stick out a little bit
We'll
further.
go there and come out.
Okay, thank you. It's not one flat wall.
Thank
it's-
you for, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
I noticed that today. I'm like,
the
which
south
one are
building-
they extending? But you're extending the one that's further off the property line, not the one that's
Yes.
closer. Thank you. That was,
Because the south building would then interfere with Don Taco if.
correct.
Yeah.
And we can't have that.
I could get a taco easier from the window.
Mr. Bouris, you got something?
I have no, I see the plan, I understand it.
Right.
Right.
I see the plan, and I see the plan.
Okay. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay,
Question?
we're going to go to the
Could I
public.
first-
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak for this application?
They all left.
Or against it.
Is there anyone that would like to speak against the application? Okay, so we're going to close public portion and go for
But
motion.
could I follow up with a few quick comments?
Please.
Okay, I just wanted to emphasize, we have some finding of facts that I should have thrown in there. The request is to authorize a reduction to the minimum side yard setback from 20 to 10 to connect the front building towards the back. We discussed that. For the purpose of redevelopment into the new multi-residential unit. The variance request is due to the fact that the two existing buildings are legally non-conforming. That's the way they were built in 1925, which is a unique situation to this lot. They've already got the existing building. They're going for an opportunity at redevelopment, which is going to be a property improvement. They were built as legally non-conforming structures in 1925. Prior to the purchase of the applicant, the granting of the variance will not confer any special privilege to the owner, and the granting of the variance allowing the reduction of the side yard setback only will not alter the character of the community or create a nuisance for the neighborhood, and I am recommending as staff the approval of the variance.
Okay, so we're going to go for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
No?
Nope.
Second, third, fourth.
Can have it.
Roll call.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
Approve.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Hrbovsky?
Yes.
Best wishes.
Thank you. You got 2 years.
Thank you.
Where are you putting your sewer?
You wouldn't regret it. You're gonna see a nice building there by next year.
Okay.
We're excited.
I couldn't resist, sorry.
All right, thank you very much. So now we're going to move on to,
Part of the record, you know.
oh boy, we have actually,
Are taco meals part of the record? Well, I'm glad.
so we have
This is why I'm not a lawyer.
elections again. How is that possible? We just did
Once
this.
every year, man.
Man, oh
Once
man,
every year.
it flies by. So I guess we're going to entertain some consideration here.
I'm happy to do that process.
Go for it.
you. All right. Are there any nominations for chair?
Herb Elliott.
I have a question.
Okay.
He's not here.
Has, on the current members of this, I'm just going to tell you, on boards, I'm a firm believer in a rotating chair. I think it is a great opportunity because we have great staff, we have great attorneys to allow people to develop their skills in it, not, I mean, fumble through it, but people that are already have that. So if somebody's been serving vice, then I would make that recommendation that Chris be nominated as chair.
Okay, so we have one nomination from Mr. Hrbovsky for Mr. Elliott to be chair. Is there a second for that nomination? Ooh, dies for lack of a second.
Wow.
We have, Mr. Bolton has nominated Mr. Hrbovsky for chair.
Before anybody seconds that,
is
can
there
I
a
comment
second
on
for
that
that
first?
nomination?
I think I'm termed out, right? Isn't this my last? I might be done. 10 years is it, right? Have I been here that long?
You know, the ordinance was supposed to, Pat, you want to speak to that?
I don't think I can continue doing this. I've done it too long. See, I'm gonna get out of it.
So you just take a year sabbatical and then you come back?
Right. Well, that's what they do with the commission.
Mr. Hrbovsky is, looks like he's scheduled to serve until October 31st, 2020.
So you can serve as chair until then?
Yeah, after that, I don't know if you're completely termed out. I'd have to ask the clerks.
How many meetings do I have to miss before you guys fire me?
None.
2.
No. 'cause I
Depends
think
on the
it's-
bylaws,
your
which I've
rules of-
asked for. I haven't seen them
Your
yet.
rules of procedure, I believe, address it and say 3 consecutive meetings. But I don't know that for a fact.
Thought it was
It
2
It was supposed to be included in a new ordinance that was
It's coming out.
I
Coming
think
attractions.
our
For a while now.
lack of a second is being really strongly hinted at by the nominee.
What?
We're laughing at you.
And so,
Well, I didn't get a second either.
well,
No,
because
I'm
you
saying, yeah.
commented before there was a
Oh.
second.
Yes, I know.
So with that clarification, Mr. Hrbovsky can serve, if elected chair, can serve as chair until October, and then such time, the vice chair will take the chair's position, unless we find out otherwise that he's not termed out. So is there now a second for the?
I second that.
Okay, so now we have a second. Any other nominations for chair?
I nominate Mr. Eisner.
Is there a second for Mr. Eisner? Fails for lack of a
Thank you.
second. Any other nominations for chair?
Mr. Bouris.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, man. Now we've got a
Pain
competitive.
in the rear.
Are there any other nominations? All right, seeing no other nominations are closed. Yes,
Who?
Nominated Mr. Bouris,
Mr. Eisner.
and then Mr. Hrbovsky seconded?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you.
All right, all in favor of Mr. Hrbovsky for chair, say aye.
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
that's almost unanimous. Okay, 4 in favor, all opposed, nay.
Nay.
1 nay, 1 against. All in favor of Mr. Bouris for chair, say aye.
Aye.
You can't vote for 2
You
of them.
can't do it that way, dude.
You can only vote for 1.
If Chris doesn't want to do it,
All
you
right.
can withdraw your
am
nomination
going-
because that, I'm.
I'll do it till October. How about that?
Okay, so let's make it official then. So all in favor of Mr. Bouris, say aye. Those who have not already
Aye.
voted for, okay. And all opposed, nay.
Nay.
You cannot abstain, you have to say. All right, so with that, Mr. Hrbovsky is elected as chair until October of 2020 or until such time as he terms out.
And vice?
Now, any nominations for vice chair?
Jacqui Turner.
I'm gonna let you figure out which one nominated her.
I'll second it.
Okay, then Mr. Bolton seconds, all right. Any other nominations?
I was gonna nominate Mr. Eisner. 'cause
Is there
I
a second
keep
for Mr.
trying
Eisner?
My darndest for you.
No,
No one
fails
likes
for
you.
lack of a second. Are there
Me as
any
the
other?
talking point.
Who nominated?
I believe Mr. Hrbovsky
Mr.
I
nominated.
Hrbovsky?
nominated Jacqui
Okay.
Turner.
I second.
And we had a second
Thank you.
from.
I'll formal with everyone. I'm like, yeah, Jackie. Good. All right, any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, by default, Ms. Turner is vice chair.
Congratulations, Jackie.
Thank you, by default. I love it.
Nobody else felt confident to run against you.
Unopposed, unopposed.
you're
She ran
unopposed.
I ran
unopposed, not by
unopposed.
Ran
default. She ran
unopposed.
unopposed.
Spin this here, folks. Spin it.
Mr. Bolton's good.
Yes.
We
Like he's
all
done this
learned how to do that over the last.
So, we're moving on.
Right, so Mr. Chair,
Yes.
go ahead.
Oh.
Just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you, you know. You
Smart
say that
pants.
today. All right, let's see what we got. we're going to do the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes as submitted by staff.
Motion second?
And roll call.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Burris?
Yes.
Mr. Hrbovsky?
Yes. Staff comments.
No comment.
Nobody? You got nothing? Board comments.
Congratulations.
All right.
Congrats, thank you, staff, for your direction.
Anything else?
Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to everyone. And we are adjourned.
Mike,
All right.
beautiful.
So,